restaurant in the Pearl District, a place we'd never been to together. Through the rain-spotted window, I saw him. He was seated at a corner booth with a woman. She was younger than me, perhaps in her late 20s, with sleek dark hair and an elegant silk blouse. Expensive-looking jewelry glittered at her ears and wrists, nothing Glenn had ever bought for me. Their body language screamed intimacy. She touched his arm frequently as she spoke. He leaned in close, whispering things that made her lips curve into a smile. My stomach churned with a sickening mix of betrayal and a strange, detached curiosity. This was clearly his mistress, the future he was poisoning me for. But as I watched, something else struck me. The woman, I would later learn her name was Simone Halford, didn't look blissful. Even when she smiled, there was a tautness in her shoulders, a watchfulness in her eyes. She checked her phone repeatedly, her gestures anxious, distracted. Glenn was pouring on the charm, but she seemed burdened. It was a detail that didn't fit the simple narrative of a man killing his wife for his lover. I filed it away, felt important. Another piece of the puzzle clicked into place around this time. Glenn's mother, Renata. She had never liked me. At our wedding rehearsal dinner, I'd overheard her tell Glenn's and I was not quite the match we'd hoped for her brilliant son. For 3 years, she maintained a polite, frosty distance. Now suddenly she was a constant, cloying presence. She came over almost daily with containers of homemade chicken soup, sitting with me for hours, holding my hand, her eyes moist with a newfound, suffocating sympathy. It made no sense until I overheard Glenn on the phone with her one night. "Thanks for checking on her today, Mom. It means the world. I worry so much when I'm at work and she's alone." His voice was thick with manufactured emotion. He had recruited his own mother, Renata, ridden with guilt over her past coldness and seeing a chance for redemption through my illness, had become an unwitting part of his surveillance system. She was his eyes and ears when he couldn't be home, her reports confirming my continued decline. The cruelty of it took my breath away. He was weaponizing familial guilt. I had pieces now. A poisoning husband, a massive insurance policy, hidden money, a tense mistress, and a mother-in-law turned unknowing spy. But the picture still felt incomplete. Why was Simone so anxious? What was Glenn not telling her? There was a layer here I hadn't penetrated. Through Dr. Walsh's secure email, I made contact with Detective Maria Reyes. She specialized in domestic violence and complex felony cases, and her no-nonsense demeanor was a lifeline. We met at a bustling, anonymous coffee shop far from our usual neighborhoods. She believed me without hesitation, which felt like the first pure oxygen I'd breathed in months. "We need a chain of evidence," she explained calmly. "Proof of the poison, proof of administration, proof of motive, and ideally something that ties him directly to the intent. Oregon is a one-party consent state. You can record conversations you are a part of." My first task was to get a sample of the poison itself. With my old friend Nene's help, she had re-entered my life, sensing trouble, and became my only confidant. I obtained a small, sterile container. One morning, instead of dumping the entire smoothie, I carefully poured a sample into it. Nene smuggled it out and sent it to a private lab as recommended. The results came back in a week. Arsenic trioxide. The levels matched the chronic exposure pattern in my blood work. Now we had the what, the how, and who were next. Detective Reyes had already discreetly checked Glenn's pharmaceutical company. No arsenic orders there. So where was he sourcing it? Simone Halford. A quick LinkedIn search revealed she worked at Pacific Northwest Industrial Supply, a company that distributed industrial chemicals, including arsenic compounds used in wood preservation and glass manufacturing. Simone worked in accounts receivable, not on the warehouse floor. She wouldn't have direct access, but she had something just as valuable: system access. I made a decision, one that Detective Reyes advised against but I felt was necessary. I needed to look Simone in the eye. I found her during her lunch break at a downtown cafe. When I slid into the seat opposite her, her face hardened into a mask of defensive hostility. "You're the wife," she spat. "I have nothing to say to you." I didn't speak. I simply slid a copy of my lab results across the table. She glanced at it, her lips twisting into a sneer. Glenn said you'd try this, that you're manipulative, unstable, that you can't accept that he's happy. I then slid the photocopy of the life insurance policy. $750,000, I said quietly.
Sole beneficiari.
Taken out before I ever got sick. She hesitated, a flicker of doubt in her eyes before she recovered. He's responsible. He's planning for the future. He loves you. He talks about how worried he is all the time. She was parroting a script. Glenn had prepared her for this exact scenario. I needed to bypass his programming. So I asked a simple, devastating question. Did Glenn ask you to get a life insurance policy too, Simone? About $500,000. All the color drained from her face. She looked like she'd been slapped. How did you know that? Let me guess, I continued, my voice soft but relentless. He told you it was for your future together. Commitment. Something to protect you both when you could finally be a real couple. Made it sound romantic. Her silence was louder than any confession. The carefully constructed walls of denial began to crack. I leaned forward. Simone, I am not the bitter wife trying to cling to a bad marriage. I am Glenn's current project, and you are his next one. You're not the endgame. You're the next payout. The transformation was immediate and total. The hostility melted away, replaced by a dawning, horrified comprehension. Her bravado crumbled, and for the first time, I saw the young, manipulated woman underneath. He said his marriage was a mistake, that you were cold, that he felt trapped. She whispered, tears welling. We met 14 months ago. He was so perfect. She told me everything. The whirlwind romance, the promises of a future. 8 months ago, he'd convinced her to take out a $500,000 policy. For our security, he'd said. She'd signed, feeling loved and protected. Then, the small favor. About 6 months ago, Glenn mentioned needing some specialty chemicals for a work project, claiming his company's supplier was overpriced. Knowing she worked at an industrial supplier, could she let him use her employee login to place an order at a better rate? She'd given him her credentials without a second thought. She never checked what he ordered. She never saw a physical product. The orders were shipped to a P.O. box. The puzzle was complete. Glenn used Simone's access to order the arsenic. If the purchase was ever traced, the digital trail would lead directly to her login, her account. She was his perfect scapegoat. And once I was dead and he'd collected $750,000, Simone, the grieving, unstable mistress who had obviously poisoned his wife out of jealousy, would have a tragic accident. Another payout. A cool $1.25 million in total. Simone began to shake, silent sobs racking her shoulders. I thought he loved me, she choked out. I've been waiting for over a year. I know, I said, a strange, cold solidarity forming between us. That's what he does. He makes you feel like the center of his universe while he plans your funeral. She looked at me, her eyes wide with terror and clarity. What do? We take him down, I said. Together. Simone became our most valuable asset inside Glenn's world. With Detective Reyes coordinating, she continued her relationship with him, but now every dinner, every phone call, every text was evidence. Oregon's one-party consent law meant her recordings were admissible. The recordings were the most chilling part. Hearing Glenn's voice, so familiar and yet now a stranger's, discuss my impending death with calm, almost clinical detachment. Once Aya's situation resolves itself, it won't be much longer now. We'll finally be able to stop hiding. He spoke of my death as a foregone conclusion, a logistical hurdle to be cleared on the path to his perfect life. There was no malice, no rage, just a sociopathic efficiency that was far more terrifying. Meanwhile, at home, my performance reached new heights. I was the perfect, fading wife. Thank you for taking such good care of me. I told him one night, my voice a weak thread. I don't know what I'd do without you. The words were ash in my mouth. He kissed my forehead, his lips cool and dry. "You'll never have to, my love," he whispered back, the lie wrapping around me like a shroud. Detective Reyes wanted one final piece. Something from Glenn directly to me, demonstrating his knowledge and comfort with the financial motive. A confession was unlikely, but we could establish intent. I agreed to wear a wire. Nene helped me secure the tiny device, her hands steady while mine trembled. "Think about something boring," she advised. "Tax codes, spreadsheet formulas." It was the best advice I'd ever gotten. That evening, I staged a moment of clarity amidst my weakness. "Glenn," I began, my voice frail, If I don't get better, I want to make sure you're taken care of. The life insurance, our savings, I want you to have everything. I need to know you'll be okay." His face arranged itself into perfect, sorrowful concern. "Don't talk like that, honey. You're going to beat this." But I pressed. "The policy, the $750,000. That's enough for you to start fresh. To build a new life." He took my hand, his grip firm. "I'll take care of everything," he said softly, his eyes holding mine. "I always do." It wasn't a confession, but it wasn't a denial. A truly innocent man would have refused to entertain the thought, would have insisted on my recovery. Glenn simply accepted the premise of my death as a practical matter to be managed. Later that night, thinking I was asleep, he called Simone from the hallway. The wire caught his low, eager voice. "She's getting worse. Probably a few more weeks at most. Then we're finally free." The relief, the excitement in his tone, was the final nail in the coffin of my old feelings. Any last, lingering fragment of love or nostalgia evaporated, leaving behind only a crystalline resolve. The arrest warrant was signed. It would happen the next morning. I had to survive one more night. The morning of the arrest dawned gray and drizzly, a typical Portland day. I moved through my usual routine like an automaton. Glenn came downstairs, fresh from his shower, smelling of sandalwood soap and his favorite cologne. He kissed me goodbye, his lips a brief, dry pressure on my cheek. "Rest today, honey. I'll bring home something nice for dinner." "Have a good day," I murmured, forcing a faint smile. 20 minutes after he left, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Detective Reyes and two uniformed officers standing on my porch. They didn't need to come in. Moments later, Glenn's car pulled back into the driveway, an unmarked police car behind him. He got out, confusion on his face, which quickly shifted to calculation as he saw the officers at the door, then to a blank, terrifying emptiness when he saw me standing there, holding my coffee cup, not pretending to be weak anymore. "Glenn Reeves," Detective Reyes announced, her voice clear and authoritative in the quiet street. "You are under arrest for the attempted first-degree murder of Aya Carnes-Reeves and for insurance fraud. You have the right to remain silent." He looked at me as they handcuffed him. For a fleeting second, our eyes met. I saw no love, no hate, no remorse. I saw the look of a chess player who has just realized his opponent has seen 3 moves ahead. It was pure, cold assessment. Then the mask of the wronged, concerned husband slid back into place. "This is a terrible mistake," he said calmly to the detective, his voice dripping with reason. "My wife has been very ill. She's confused. Her mind, it's not what it used to be. Still performing. To the very end." Detective Reyes was unmoved. "We have laboratory analysis of the poison you administered, financial records, witness testimony, and recorded conversations. You can save the performance for your attorney." Something in his eyes flickered and died. "I want my lawyer," he stated. They led him to the car. He didn't look back. I stood at the window, watching the vehicle carrying my husband away until it disappeared around the corner. I expected to feel a surge of victory, of vindication. Instead, I felt a profound, weary emptiness. And beneath that, the first fragile buds of freedom. At the station, Glenn immediately activated his backup plan. Blame Simone. He claimed she was obsessed with him, that she must have poisoned me to eliminate the obstacle to their relationship. It was a clever, plausible story. If he hadn't been so arrogantly confident, it might have worked. But he didn't know Simone had been working with us for weeks. He didn't know about the security footage Detective Reyes had obtained from the postal facility, clearly showing him picking up packages from the P.O. box linked to the arsenic orders. He didn't know about the recordings of his own voice. But he didn't know Simone had been working with us for weeks. He didn't know about the security footage Detective Reyes had obtained from the postal facility, clearly showing him picking up packages from the P.O. box linked to the arsenic orders. He didn't know about the recordings of his own voice. When Detective Reyes played a selected clip for him, his own eager whisper about being finally free, the last vestiges of his composure crumbled. The reality of his defeat settled in his features. The evidence was an immovable mountain. The poison smoothie sample, the financial records, the insurance policies, Simone's testimony and account records, the P.O. box footage, the damning recordings, and his own internet search history on our home computer, which included queries like chronic arsenic symptoms timeline and undetectable poisons. Faced with an unwinnable trial, Glenn eventually accepted a plea deal. 15 years in state prison with eligibility for parole after 10. His pharmaceutical license was revoked permanently. All his assets were tied up in the ensuing civil suit. Simone, recognized by the district attorney as a manipulated pawn who had helped bring down the true perpetrator, received probation and mandatory counseling. She left Portland, seeking anonymity elsewhere. We are not friends. Ours is a bond forged in shared trauma, a silent understanding that needs no maintenance. Telling Renata was a special kind of agony. The devastation in her voice when she realized she had been used as a tool in her own son's murder plot was heartbreaking. I brought you soup, she kept whispering, before the line went dead. We haven't spoken since. Some silences speak volumes. My physical recovery took about 3 months. The arsenic left my system. My hair grew back, thicker and with a rebellious wave it never had before. The brain fog lifted completely, and the sharp, analytical mind I had missed so dearly returned, wiser and more vigilant. I filed for divorce immediately, sold the house. Every corner of it was a stage for his lie. I moved to Seattle, a new city with a sky that felt wider. I took a new accounting job. I found a small apartment with large windows that flood the rooms with light. Every morning I make my own breakfast. Eggs, toast, fresh fruit from the market. Simple, nourishing, and mine. The act of preparing my own food, of trusting what enters my body, is a daily, quiet reclaiming of my autonomy. Nene visits often. We have a standing dinner date every Thursday. She never said, I told you so, though she had every right. That's what real friendship is. Glenn writes to me from prison sometimes. I recognize his neat handwriting on the envelopes. I have never opened a single letter. That chapter is closed, sealed, and stored away. Some stories are not worth rereading. I used to torment myself with questions. Did I miss the signs? Was I a fool? I've made peace with that. Glenn was a skilled predator. I was not a fool. I was his chosen target, and he was professionally adept at camouflage. My only error was mistaking control for care, isolation for intimacy. I survived because I am stubborn, because my father taught me that documentation is protection, and because ultimately Glenn underestimated me. He saw the fading wife, the compliant victim. He didn't see the senior accountant who could audit his life and find every hidden decimal point of his crime. These days, my life is quiet. It is peaceful. It is mine. The future is an open spreadsheet, blank and full of potential, and I am in no rush to fill it with anything but the simple, profound peace of my own safety. If the story sent chills down your spine, remember that awareness is our first defense. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is.